Another area perhaps he still needs to deal with, according to some economic analysts, is the issue of curbing excess liquidity and ensuring that government does not borrow its own money at a higher interest rate, and that CBN should actually maintain price stability. How can he go about this?
Concentrating on price stability really is the fundamental role central banks now play all around the world. They call it inflation targeting, in which case every year there's an inflation target set, and the job of the CBN is to manipulate monetary policy, which of course is in three planks. The first is to look at the quantum of money, and then look at the supply of credit, and look also at the price of credit. So in which case, interest rates, volume of money in circulation, and then, of course, the supply of credit in the system. Those are the things that the central bank primarily focuses on in order to anchor the rate of inflation. Now, in the situation we are, there is liquidity surfeit within the banking system. And we also claim that, yes, it exists within the economy, no doubt. And so there is always this challenge, which we all learn as economists, as our first stage of learning economics, that you have too much money chasing too few commodities, and so it will create inflationary pressures. So for the CBN governor, the challenge will be that, yes, the banking system is liquid, but that liquidity remains in a trap within that system, which means it circulates between the central bank and the commercial banks. So, and of course, because that is happening, you find that if you bring an instrument, like the way our treasury bills are priced, which is the same way it is done all over the world, it is indexed to the signal rate that we mentioned earlier on, the monetary policy rate. So if it is indexed to it, that means the higher that MPR is, the higher will be the rate of return promised by treasury bills. So to any sensible investor, that makes it very, very attractive. And insofar as it's attractive, the banks will naturally want to direct the liquidity in their hands in that particular instrument. So if they do, then it will mean that, yes, the government is issuing treasury bills through the central bank, creating investment opportunity for the banks that have a lot of liquidity on hand, but which the environment they operate in doesn't make conducive to lend that much out. So it has created an instrument that they can invest in. So the real challenge there I see is the monetary policy rate itself. If that rate remains double digit, there's every likelihood that treasury bills rate also will be double digit. And if it is double digit, it is risk-free, as we say. So if it is risk-free, any sensible investor anywhere in the world will prefer to put his money in treasury bill at no risk, rather than go like the banks will now be asked to lend money. It is a lot riskier to lend money than to just put your money in treasury bills. So the banks are making the best investment choices. So the challenge you face is therefore that I can address this is look at the MPR, even if it doesn't go all the way down, but there's a need to take it in the direction which is down, that will send a signal that his own desire as CBN governor is to see interest rate come down, and happily also, it has an environment where inflation rate is single digit. So which means MPR at 12%, inflation rate at 7.9% as at April this year, simply tells me that the rate of return on treasury bills as a reference, for example, is positive. Positive because the real rate means simply take the nominal rate on the instrument, subtract the rate of inflation. So it means the real rate is positive, which is the difference between 7.9 and 12%.
Now, is it actually possible to achieve a stable exchange rate, single-digit inflation rate, and a low interest rate at the same time? Is it possible?
The interesting thing about, I call it the management of macroeconomic prices, because there are three of them. Interest rate is one, inflation rate is one, and then the exchange rate. I call them the three macroeconomic prices. Now, if you go by the theory of economics, it says that it is impossible for you to take control of those three. So in which case, the question the CBN governor will have to ask himself is, which one should I focus on? And then allow the market to drive the others. Now, also that question is easier to answer when you look at the structure of the economy, and then you also consider what are the objectives you want to achieve. There are four macroeconomic objectives. The first is growth of the economy. The second, you talk about inflation, moderate rate of inflation, okay? We also talk about employment, that is job creation. And then we talk about viability of the balance of payments, which looks at the external sector relating to your own economy. So the question before the CBN governor today will be, which of these objectives should I pursue? Should I pursue economic growth, which would mean interest rate has to come down? Should I pursue inflation rate, that is inflation targeting, in which case I want to ensure inflation remains single digit, and therefore I will not worry my head about where the Naira exchange rate is, and also about where the growth of the economy goes. So, but if I want the economy to grow, then that means I will have to do something about the rate of interest, which will make credit cheaper. If credit is cheaper, we grow the economy, and we also pay attention to job creation in the process, because they will go together. Then I must be ready to live with some measure of inflationary pressures. There's a trade-off between them, and that's why it will all come down to what really does it want. But my counsel there is that whatever decision he wants to make, let it be driven by, one, his own understanding of the structure of our economy, and then based on the evidence of what is happening and likely to happen, then he can make a choice between those three macroeconomic prices.
Well, we saw his predecessor focus more on achieving or maintaining low inflation rate, single-digit inflation rate, and of course stable exchange rate, which of course I can give to him. He did achieve that. But let's see how Mr. Godwin Emefiele is going to do it, and how he intends to actually stimulate the economy, which is the expectation of many people. Thank you very much, Dr. Adedipe. It's been wonderful speaking with you.
Thank you so very much for having me. I can only wish him well.
That was Dr. Biodun Adedipe, financial and management consultant. Just before we go, let's get to meet the new CBN governor again.
Mr. Godwin Emefiele holds a BSc degree and an MBA degree in finance, both from the University of Nigeria, Nsukka. He is also an alumnus of executive education at Stanford University, Harvard University, and Wharton Graduate Schools of Business. Mr. Godwin Emefiele served as Chief Executive Officer and Group Managing Director of Zenith Bank PLC. He was a Deputy Managing Director of the bank since 2001 and served as an Executive Director in charge of corporate banking, treasury, financial control, and strategic planning of Zenith Bank PLC. He had also been a part of the management team since inception. Before commencing his banking career, he had lectured finance and insurance at the University of Nigeria, Nsukka, and University of Port Harcourt. He also served as director of Asian Microfinance Bank Limited. As the immediate past managing director of Zenith Bank PLC, Mr. Emefiele brings along to his new role as the CBN governor over 20 years of banking management experience.
Well, that's our package on this week's edition of the program. Thank you for being with us. You can share your views with us on Business Incorporated at channelstv.com. I'm Chimezi Obiwagu.